Once upon a time, there was a farmer. He was so poor that he didn't even have a piece of land. He lived in a small cottage with his only daughter. The daughter said, "We should ask the king to give us a piece of wasteland." The king knew they were very poor, so he gave them a meadow. The daughter and the farmer wanted to plant some grains in the meadow, so they started to dig it. Suddenly, they found a pure gold mortar in the meadow. The father thought he should give the mortar to the king because it was the king's kindness that made them have the land. But the daughter disagreed. She said, "Dad, a mortar and a pestle should go together. We only have the mortar but no pestle. The king will ask us to find the pestle too. Where are we going to find it? We'd better not give it." The farmer didn't listen to his daughter. He gave the mortar to the king, hoping the king would take it as a gift. The king took the mortar, but then said he should give the pestle as well. The farmer explained again and again that he hadn't found the gold pestle. The king thought he was lying and put him in prison. In prison, the farmer ate the same as the other prisoners, just a little bit of bread and water. He really regretted not listening to his daughter and kept crying out, "Oh, I should have listened to my daughter." The servants heard this and reported it to the king. So the king told the servants to bring the farmer to him and asked him personally why he was crying like that. "What did your daughter say to you? Why do you keep saying you should have listened to your daughter?" "My daughter didn't want me to give the mortar to you. She said if I gave the mortar, you would surely ask me to find the pestle," the farmer answered. After hearing this, the king said to the farmer, "Is your daughter really that smart? I don't believe it. Go and bring her here. I want to meet her in person." The farmer's daughter had to come to see the king. The king said to her, "I want to see if you're as smart as your father said. I'll give you a riddle. If you can guess it, I'll marry you." "Okay, I'm willing to try." The farmer's daughter agreed. So the king gave her the riddle. "Come to the palace. You can't wear clothes and you can't be naked. You can try a horse and you can't take a carriage. You can't walk on the main road and you can't walk off the main road. If you can come to me as required, I'll marry you." The daughter went home. She took off all her clothes, then found a big fishing net to wrap herself up. Then she rented a donkey, tied the net to the donkey's tail, and let the donkey drag her in the net to the palace. All the way, she only had her two big toes touching the ground. In this way, she met all the king's requirements. The king saw that she guessed the riddle, so he had her father released from prison, kept his promise and married her. He also gave her all the royal property to manage, but he didn't allow her to take part in any political affairs. A few years later, something happened in the palace. Some farmers sold their wooden parked their empty carts in front of the palace. Some of these carts were pulled by oxen, and some were pulled by horses. One farmer used 3 horses to pull his cart, and one of the horses gave birth to a foal. The foal ran between 2 oxen that were pulling another cart. The farmers had a fight about this. They were shouting and throwing things. The owner of the oxen wanted to take the foal for himself and said the foal was born by the oxen. Of course, the owner of the horse didn't agree. He thought the foal should belong to him because it was his horse that gave birth to the foal. Finally, they asked the king to make a judgment. The king thought the foal was lying beside the oxen, so it should belong to the owner of the oxen. So the owner of the oxen happily got the foal, while the owner of the horse was crying bitterly because he was the real owner of the foal. He heard that the queen was the daughter of a poor farmer and was very smart and kind. So he went to the queen and hoped the queen could help him get his foal back. "I can give you an idea, but you can't say it's my plan." The queen said, "Tomorrow morning, stand on the road that the king must pass when he reviews the soldiers. In the middle of the road, hold a fishing net as if you're fishing nonstop, and then shake the net as if it's full of fish. Finally, the queen also told him how to answer the king's question. The farmer did as the queen said. Early the next morning, he stood in the middle of the road, making the gesture of fishing with the net. The king was very surprised when he saw this and sent a servant to ask the farmer what he was doing. The farmer said, "I'm fishing." The servant was confused. "There's no water here. How can you fish?" The farmer said, "If an ox can give birth to a foal, why can't I fish where there's no water?" After hearing the servant's report, the king called the farmer to him and said, "Who taught you these words? You couldn't have thought of them yourself. Tell me the truth right now." The farmer prayed to God and insisted that he thought of these words himself. He didn't want to betray the queen, but the king didn't believe him. He ordered his men to press the farmer on a bundle of hay and beat him. The farmer had no choice but to admit that it was the queen who taught him all this. When the king returned to the palace, he said to the queen, "You deceived me. You're no longer my wife. Go back to your small house right away. However, I'll give you a parting gift. You can take one thing that you think is the most precious and beautiful." The queen said, "Okay, dear husband. I'll do exactly as you say." Then she kissed the king to say goodbye. The queen asked someone to bring a glass of water with strong sleeping pills in it. She brought it to the king. When saying goodbye, she only took a little sip, but the king drank a big mouthful. Soon, the king fell into a deep sleep. The queen asked the servant to wrap the king in a beautiful white cloth and carry him to the cart at the door. Then she drove the cart herself and took the king to the small house where she used to live. She let the king lie on a small bed, sound asleep day and night. When the king woke up, he found himself in a strange place and said, "Oh God, where am I?" None of his servants was around. Finally, the queen came to his bedside and said, "Dear king, you promised me that I could take the most precious and beautiful thing in the palace back, and you are the most precious and beautiful thing to me, so I brought you here." The king was very touched and said with tears in his eyes, "My dear wife, we belong to each other forever." Then they went back to the palace together and had their wedding again. Maybe they lived happily ever after. The farmer's daughter in the story changed her fate with her intelligence, and I believe that you can also use wisdom in your life. Now, go ahead and share this wonderful story with your little ones and become smarter together.